In this video, I'm gonna reveal to you Mark Lanier's secret weapon. First things first, if you don't know who Mark Lanier is, he is the man, the myth, the legend, and more importantly, he is the lawyer with over $20 billion in jury verdicts. If you want to learn more about Mark and see some of his thoughts and insights when it comes to trial work, check out my interview of Mark Lanier, sliding in the link above. Now, you may be wondering, well, how do you know what Mark Lanier's secret weapon is? Well, this year I decided to go check out his trial academy that he hosts once a year for charity in Houston, Texas. And I was absolutely blown away by the entire experience. But my biggest takeaway was this one tool that Mark uses in all of his trials, and he also used that very tool in the entire trial academy. And so I realized, yeah, this is something that's important and something worth sharing with the Law Venture community. As you can tell, I don't have my typical tea mug in hand. I'm drinking coconut water because I had the brilliant idea to go play volleyball outside when it's 100 degrees and no sun coverage. And I am regretting that decision. Your boy makes some poor life choices sometimes. Okay, so it's time for the big reveal. What is this secret weapon or number one tool that Mark Lanier uses in the courtroom? A document camera. And so in this video, we're gonna go through this particular document camera, and I'm going to explain why you need to have one of your own. Because Mark Lanier uses one. Honestly, I can probably stop the video here. We could just cut it and just call it a day. Y'all probably need a little bit more, but honestly, if I'm watching this and I know what I know about Mark Lanier and the success he's had, if this man's recommending a document camera, I'm gonna stop the video and go get myself a document camera. Do not, come closer. Do not rely on the courthouse's document camera. I'm gonna give you my horror story to explain why the risk reward of hoping all goes well is not worth the gamble. So in my situation, I had a pretty unimportant hearing at Travis County's brand new civil courthouse that I hadn't been to since it just opened. And so I had no idea what the tech situation was going to be and what the layout situation was going to be. And so I was kind of willing to roll the dice on my presentation because, again, it wasn't the most important hearing. And I was wanting to kind of see exactly what the setup would be if I ended up having a more important hearing or a trial that I was needing a document camera for. So I'm gonna do my best John Madden impersonation and show you what I'm looking at right now. In particular, this was the courtroom that I was in. And I decided to do a quick pan just so I could be oriented in the case that we end up going to trial and I know exactly how I can optimize the technology situation. What I'm gonna do now is put a box around the podium where the document camera is. It is inside this podium where it pops out, and then ultimately the document camera is positioned right there. This was awful. I tried to use the document camera and it was absolutely a terrible and ineffective argument on my front to where I just basically gave up on it. And here's why. Notice where the judge is positioned. He has a massive computer screen in front of him. I almost said laptop, but it's way too big. It's a computer screen. And so if I'm standing in, let's flip this to, if I'm standing in this general area and we have a judge here who is listening to me, the problem is he doesn't actually sit this tall. He was more with the headrest and couldn't see me through the computer screen and the monitor. And so I'm making an argument, but but I'm not able to have any type of eye contact with this judge. So I was basically making an argument and hoping he was listening to me while trying to use this document camera. Now, this wasn't a trial, no witnesses were involved, but I learned very quickly that I would have the same issue if I were to go to trial and also try and use this document camera where it's currently located, because the witness stand is right here. The witness is going to have the same problem seeing me all the way over there. I'd even argue that the jury is going to be removed from any type of arguments that I would want to make, or any type of use of the document camera that I'd want to utilize during opening and closing if I'm all the way over here and there is this much distance between us. Compare and contrast that to my counsel table being located right here, where if I'm at counsel table with my own document camera, then I have everything that I need in a prime location to where easy line of sight. That didn't change colors, but we're gonna push through. Easy line of sight, easy line of sight, in order for me to be able to assess the situation and see everyone who I think I need to be seeing at one particular time. This may not be the situation for all courtrooms, but why risk it? Why not have your own document camera in order to make sure that you're going to give the most effective arguments, presentations, cross-examinations that you can give? So I'm the type of person that uses my iPad a lot. In fact, when I was at Mark's Trial Academy, I was using my iPad to write all of my notes. And here I see Mark during this entire seminar using a document camera with paper that he's writing on in order to outline certain things. And if you ever watch some of the footage of Mark in the courtroom at trial, he's always writing down to create the visuals of the trial in order to capture the attention of the jury. So in my mind, I'm like, okay, yes, the document camera and the paper can be effective, but what about an iPad where you can have an infinite scroll, you can zoom in, you can change the colors with just a simple pen. There are so many options and so many powerful things with the note apps that are available on the iPad these days. And Mark made two really good points. The first one is that whenever you have a piece of paper and you're writing on it, you're basically creating something in the moment that you can now have a little bit of flair with, right? Like a paper has noise. If you're flipping a paper, you can be kind of dramatic about that and capture some attention. You can wave the paper around. You can put the paper in front of somebody. It's like the scene from Suits that they have every other episode where they're sliding the folder and the papers across the desk as like a, I gotcha, we win the case type of dramatic flair. And then the second point that Mark made, which is I think something that really won me over, is that he would have concern about what he's putting down on the iPad as being a little bit not as trustworthy as something that's on paper. Because if you write on the iPad, then the issue potentially would be the jury thinking that at some point you're messing with the document, or that the computer's doing a little bit of magic that the jury can't see. If you write something down on paper, it's finalized. It's there, you can wave it around, everyone can see it. And if you need to scratch or change something out, you're not gonna be able to have that magic eraser that you would have on the iPad. So when it comes to just the attention grabbing effect of the paper and the trust that you would hopefully be able to get throughout the trial using the paper, that right there won me over when it comes to using the document camera over the iPad for the purpose of creating that note and visual effects that Mark Lanier likes to create at trial. Because this is what Mark Lanier uses. And if it's good enough for Mark, it's good enough for me. Let me start by saying this. Once I learned that Mark Lanier uses an IPEVO document camera, I reached out to IPEVO to see which specific model Mark uses. And they told me that he uses the VZ-X. That's what I have right here. And they said that they are so confident that this product is going to benefit lawyers in the courtroom. They sent this to me absolutely free with no expectations on how this video is going to turn out. And so what I plan on doing in this video is giving you a full 100% authentic review of this particular product through the lens of a lawyer who wants to use it in the courtroom. First things first, let's get a little bit of a reference of what we're dealing with here. This is about 2.5 pounds. This isn't anything that's super heavy, but there is definitely some weight on the base, which does make it feel stable when it's set down. It feels like what I would imagine winning an Oscar would feel like, to where it's heavy on the bottom and very light on top. And when I put it down on my table, there's like no wiggle from the camera. I'm moving it, and you can see my mic is moving, but the document camera, hopefully at the top, you can tell, is not moving at all. And the big draw for the VZ-X for me is this bad boy right here, which is an HDMI output. And the reason why this is so important is because that courtroom that I was showing you on the video in Travis County only provides each counsel table one HDMI. And that means that if I needed a USB, then not an HDMI, then I think a lot of document cameras would work and maybe do the trick. But this HDMI aspect is important because not all document cameras have that HDMI output. This one does. In fact, this one also has USB-C, so that you can also connect to a USB in case if you are in a courtroom that is operating on a USB. So you have both options there, HDMI and USB. Keep in mind that you want to figure out what the adapter situation is going to be and potentially a splitter. By the way, for everyone's convenience, I'm going to provide links to everything I'm talking about down in the description below. But what I have here is an HDMI bi-directional switcher. And so what you can see is there are 2 HDMI inputs and 1 HDMI output. And there's a button in between, and you can hear it clicking right there. So this is going to be important in my Travis County situation where all I'm given as an output is 1 HDMI, and I can't add other HDMIs into the equation. And the problem that I have is that, yes, I want to use the document camera, but I may want to also have slides for like an opening statement or a closing argument that I'm also wanting to go back and forth with. Mark Lanier is an absolute stud when it comes to having presentations and seamlessly going from slides to the document camera and back and forth. And so what I want to be able to do is hook up my iPad to an HDMI to one of these inputs, and then have the document camera connected to the other input. And then again, I click this little button and it goes from iPad presentation to document camera. In order to be able to hook up my iPad, I bought this adapter to where it goes from USB-C and it provides the HDMI output, as well as being able to have another USB-C and a traditional USB, so that I can potentially connect my iPad to the switcher while also keeping my iPad charged through another one of the outputs there. That way I'm not losing battery. So that's going to be, I think, my tech stack to some degree. I'm leaving some of the other aspects out because it's kind of not within the scope of this video, but I do want to put in perspective the importance of knowing what you need to go into the courtroom in order to get the most out of your document camera. The second thing I want to bring up is very important from a practical standpoint. This product, this VZ-X, has a battery inside of it, which according to IPEVO's website, should last you about 9 to 12 hours. That is going to get most lawyers through a trial day without having to worry about putting this connected to some type of power source. I originally was eyeing the model below the VZ-X, which does not have a battery, because I was thinking, well, it's cheaper, and also if it's doesn't have a battery, then maybe I can just keep it plugged in, or maybe I can have an external power bank that is sitting right next to it. And then I realized, one, at these council tables, every outlet is going to be critically important, and there may not be enough outlets to be able to keep that thing plugged in. If I'm having multiple people at council table and everyone gets one outlet, then I may not have an outlet for that particular document camera. And if I have a power bank, my concern is, one, I'm gonna start cluttering the council table, or two, I'm gonna wanna move the document camera around at certain points and forget in the moment that it is connected to a power bank, and the thing go flying, disconnect, turn the document camera off, and there be issues. So for my own peace of mind, my recommendation is definitely going to be the VZ-X over any type of option that doesn't have a battery, because you don't want to be concerned about having a power source. So one thing I don't want to overlook is that USB-C connection. So you can connect USB-C to USB-C, obviously, and the cord that comes with this VZ-X model is a USB-C that goes directly into the document camera that ends up becoming that square traditional USB that we're used to seeing. And that's what I have plugged into my iMac right now. I have an adapter because my iMac's input is USB-C, but I wanted to make sure the cord works, and it does. And the reason why this is important is because in a world of virtual law firms and virtual depositions, you may want to use this dock camera during a deposition. So I have up right now Zoom, and we are going to test out the document camera a little bit so you can see it in action. A couple things to note before we test it out. It's just a simple slide of the power button, slide the output from HDMI into the USB output. So you're just sliding a little toggle, and everything's ready to rock and roll from the dock camera side of things. Now, in order to be able to screen share from Zoom, you're going to need to download IPEVO's visualizer. I'll try and provide a link to the video that IPEVO has on YouTube that takes you step by step. It's very easy. I just downloaded this visualizer, and once you're ready to take a deposition using this document camera, just make sure you open up the visualizer. It'll connect to the IPEVO, and you're ready to rock and roll from there. So right now I do have Zoom up, and I'm going to click share screen. It gives me my options. One of those options is the visualizer. So I'll click that and share. So right now we're looking from the IPEVO down to my tabletop, which if you've watched my other videos, my tabletop is a whiteboard. So for the ease of use, we're gonna mess with my whiteboard for a quick second. So I have my, let's pull out this bad boy. So I'm gonna write this. I'm gonna write that out, and we're gonna play with it a little bit. So notice what's going on here. This is the highest that the IPEVO camera can go on its own. And I think it has the height on the spec sheet of the website, but it's just shy of 18 inches. The cord obviously goes a little bit higher. And let's take a look at the most zoomed out perspective on the Zoom camera, or the Zoom perspective. So that's just over, we're almost at 19 inches by, let's take a look here. So 10 and a half, yeah, 10 and a half. So 19 inches by 10 and a half at this type of perspective. So that's something I think that's going to be important for the lawyers preparing for trial, because if you have an exhibit that you're having to put down, you know whether or not that exhibit's going to be too big or maybe too small. And let's say it's something that's smaller, like this, I'm knocking things over, like this product that we were looking at earlier. This is the bi-directional switch. And let's say it was kind of hard to see. So we have the zoom in function built in right on the camera. You can actually see my sunburn that I'm dealing with. And so that's zoomed in 1 time. Let's see if it zooms in again. That's 2 times, 3 times. So, okay, yeah, the 3rd time is the limit there. So let's come out 1, 2, you can go 1 more, there we go. So that's the ultra wide. And I believe this is an 8 megapixel camera. So you're gonna get pretty good quality there. The camera also has a light. So just for what we're looking at, that honestly doesn't really change too much. So I'm gonna turn the light off. And what I am going to do is mess with the exposure. And that exposure is just a button as well. It's where you can add exposure, which is basically brightness, and kind of lighten up the image a little bit. And notice that we're losing a little bit of the detail here. And oops, I didn't mean to zoom in. So it can brighten up a lot, but you start losing a little bit of detail. So let's find that sweet spot. Okay. Yeah, the black isn't as black, but whenever you bump up exposure, whether it's with this or any type of like photo or video that you're editing, that's just part of it, is you're going to lose a little bit of the darkness. But I don't think that's going to be a big deal for most lawyers in the courtroom. So that is the exposure feature. One thing to also mention is just the rotation. So we can rotate, 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 and rotate. That may be important based on what your positioning is at counsel table, right? Like if you don't have the real estate to put this in front of you, then maybe it needs to go on the side and you have to rotate accordingly. So overall, I mean, the ease of use here is pretty nice. I don't know what this filter is. Okay. I don't know why I'd ever want to use this filter, but we're in it now. All right. There's that. That's a little haunting. All right. I don't really understand the use of the filters. Maybe there's that's a little trippy. All right, black and white. There's always the black and white filter. I think this is the sepia version, and then we're back to normal with some burn on that arm. Okay, so here's, I guess, kind of the breakdown. I'm combining 2 aspects of this review: Zoom, in order to show you how it easily connects to Zoom. Just make sure that you have the correct visualizer app downloaded and up and running. And then this, obviously, you can work just based on the buttons. So you don't have to get too techie with Zoom during that deposition to where you're moving the mouse over here and you're trying to coordinate with this by also using the mouse. No, they're just simple buttons that you can click in order to be able to get what you're trying to get from this document camera. I have no interest in it. If you look on IPEVO VZ-X's sales page, you'll see the feature that it emits its own Wi-Fi. That's important. That's a distinction that needs to be clear, that this has its own Wi-Fi coming out of it, that whatever you're trying to connect it to, whether it's a phone or a computer, must be connected to this Wi-Fi here, not to a router's Wi-Fi. So you're not gonna be able to browse the internet while also using this particular Wi-Fi. That's my understanding of it, at least. If I'm not clear, please clear that up in the comment section down below. But I have no interest at any point when I'm in the courtroom of relying on internet, because if the internet is down, then that's going to affect my arguments, and that's something that I do not want to have to stress about. I don't want there to be slow internet, and I don't want there to be no internet. I want everything connected with a wire so that I don't have to lose any sleep and I don't have to risk something going wrong. So that's why, again, to recap, I have this bad boy going to an HDMI switch that's also going to be connected to my iPad, which is going to use this particular adapter with an HDMI back into this switch so that I can go back and forth between presentation and dock camera that connects to what the courthouse uses on an HDMI cord, and I don't have to worry about the internet, so I can sleep at night. For me, what I plan on doing is trying to utilize this document camera in law venture videos as a way to practice so that whenever it is time to use it effectively in the courtroom, I'm comfortable with it and I feel like I'm polished in delivering how I need to deliver in the courtroom. Part of it is I am typing all day, every day. Even when I'm using my iPad, I'm oftentimes typing on the keyboard that I have connected to my iPad, which means my handwriting has just been going downhill to where it's just awful. It's bad. It's not as bad as a doctor's, but it's not great. And so if I'm going to be writing on documents, I need my handwriting to be clear so that people know what I'm actually writing, because I could write the most effective argument or points or illustration. If nobody knows what's actually being written, it doesn't mean a thing. So the goal is to practice, practice, and practice a little bit more so that whenever it is time for me to use this bad boy, I'm rocking and rolling, using it effectively, and hopefully having success with it. All right, guys, that is all I have. I think I hit on the essentials that lawyers would be concerned about with using a document camera in the courtroom. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, thoughts, or if you just want to say hi, at this point, you know the drill. Go in the comment section down below. If you're still watching, I appreciate you. Don't forget to hit the like button so we can rank higher and ultimately reach more people, which means that we can help more people. That's always the goal. And with all that said, I'll see you in the next video.